that, in fact, the Agriculture Committee last year heard from the 3 federal agencies tasked with regulating agriculture biotechnology: the USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Food and Drug Administration. Now, their work is based on sound science and is the gold standard for our policymaking, including this policy we are debating today, one of the most important food and agriculture decisions in recent decades. Many people say this issue is the biggest issue for agriculture in 20 years. I agree. At our hearing, the federal government expert witnesses highlighted the steps that their agencies have already taken to ensure that agriculture biotechnology is safe to other plants, safe to the environment, and safe to our food supply. It was clear that our regulatory system ensures biotechnology crops are among the most tested in the history of agriculture. At the conclusion of the hearing, virtually all of the Senate Agriculture Committee members were in agreement. Not one disagreed. Thus, it is clear that what we're facing today is not a safety or a health issue, despite claims by a couple of my colleagues on the Senate floor. It is a market issue. This is really a conversation about a few states dictating to every state the way food moves from farmers to consumers. This patchwork approach of mandates adds costs to national food prices, in fact, requiring changes in the production or on-package labeling of the most of the nation's food supply for a single state would impact citizens in each of our home states. A recent study on the impact of on-packaging labels estimates that the cost to consumers could total as much as $82 billion annually. $82 billion, approximately $1,050 per hardworking American family. Let me repeat that, $1,050 per hardworking American family. Now is not the time for Congress to make food more expensive for anybody to eat or produce, not the consumer, and certainly not the farmer. Today's farmers are being asked to produce more safe and affordable food to meet growing demands at home and around a very troubled and hungry world. At the same time, they are facing increased challenges to production, including limited land and water resources, uncertain weather patterns, and pest and disease issues. Agriculture biotechnology has become a valuable tool, Mr. President, in ensuring the success of the American farmer in meeting the challenge of increasing yield in a more efficient, safe, and responsible manner. In fact, thanks to modern agriculture and agriculture technology, we have seen a 48% increase in corn yields. That's good for the farmer, that's good for the consumer, that's good for a troubled and hungry world. And a 36% increase in soybean yields in the last 20 years. That's the value of agriculture biotechnology. Now, I have also heard, and I do understand, the concern from some of my colleagues about consumers and available information about our food. Some consumers want to know more about ingredients. This is a good thing. Consumers should take an interest in their food and where it comes from, and the farmers and ranchers that produce their food. This legislation puts forward policies that will help consumers find information, almost a guarantee. And it does so without jeopardizing the technology upon which our farmers rely. More importantly, the legislation before us provides an immediate and comprehensive solution to the unworkable state-by-state patchwork of labeling laws. State consumer protection laws and anything beyond the wrecking ball that we see related to biotechnology labeling mandates are codified as exempt from preemption. And we ensure that the solution to the state patchwork, one thing can we all agree on, is effective. The amendment focuses on human food that may or may not be bioengineered. We do not set up any new offices at the Department of Agriculture and minimize any impact on any other agency. Instead, we direct the Secretary to establish a uniform national disclosure standard through rulemaking. It sets national uniformity that allows for the free flow of interstate commerce, a power granted to Congress in the U.S. Constitution. Let me point this out. The Commerce Clause, Article 1, Section 8, the clause number 3, the Congress shall have power to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes. But note, among the several states, more than several states today. This labeling uniformity is based on science and allows the solution and allows the value chain from farmer to processor to shipper to retailer to consumer to continue as the free market has intended. To accomplish national uniformity, we crafted a mandatory disclosure requirement. We're talking about mandatory. We're talking about mandatory disclosure, not just labeling. The Senate bipartisan agreement is mandatory disclosure with several options: text on package, a symbol, or an electronic link to a website that Senator Tillis so aptly demonstrated. The legislation is clear that the link cannot include any text on the package that could be used to denigrate biotechnology. It will simply say, "Scan here for more food information." We also allow for websites or telephone numbers to satisfy the requirements for small food manufacturers, and we completely exempt very small food manufacturers and restaurants from having to comply. The disclosure requirement applies to food subject to the Food and Drug and Cosmetic Act labeling requirements, as well as some meat and poultry products. We do not include alcohol, as those items are subject to labeling requirements under a different authority at the U.S. Treasury. In this respect, alcohol is similar to other food that is labeled under a different authority than the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. The scope of this agreement includes human food, not animal feed. The language prohibits the Secretary from considering any food product derived from an animal to be bioengineered based only upon the animal eating bioengineered feed. It is important, as with any federal legislation on this topic, for Congress to consider scientific fact and also unintended consequences. We include a safety statement. The agreement ensures that the regulations will treat bioengineered food the same as non-bioengineered in terms of the counterpart. We agree that these products have been found safe through the federal regulatory process. This legislation, and I want to emphasize this legislation, and I want my colleagues to understand this, has the support of more than 1,000 organizations, large and small, representing the entire food chain. And that number continues to grow every day. Never before in the history of the Senate Agriculture Committee, and I would venture to any committee, never before have we seen such a coalition of constituents all united behind such an effort. And their message is clear. It is time for us to act. It is time for us to provide certainty in the marketplace. It is time for us to pass this amendment. Now, I appreciate the bipartisan support of those on the committee who joined me by voting to approve our committee bill, those who supported a solution in March, and those who have voted to consider this agreement. We've again made significant changes to address the concerns of the ranking member and others. Now we all must carry this across the finish line. I urge my colleagues to support this bipartisan approach and protect the safest, most abundant, and affordable food supply in the world. Now I want to say something else. I want to talk about the men and women who the Agriculture Committee represents and who everyone on the Agriculture Committee should champion and protect. And I'm going to describe that person to my colleagues on the floor with reverence to Paul Harvey. And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, milk cows, work all day in the field, milk cows again, eat supper, then go to town, stay past midnight at the meeting of the school board. So God made a farmer. I need somebody with arms strong enough to wrestle a calf and yet gentle enough to deliver his own grandchild. Somebody to call hogs, tame cantankerous machinery, come home hungry, have to wait on lunch until his wife's done feeding, visiting ladies, and then tell the ladies to be sure and come back real soon and mean it. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to sit up all night with a newborn colt and watch it die. Watch it die. Then dry his eyes and say, maybe next year. I need somebody who can shape an axe handle from a persimmon sprout, shoe a horse with a hunk of car tire, who can make harness out of haywire, feed sacks, and shoe scraps, and who planting time and harvest season will finish his 40-hour week by Tuesday noon, then painting from tractor back, put in another 72 hours. So God made a farmer. God had to have somebody willing to ride the ruts at the double speed to get his heavy hay in ahead of the rain clouds and then stop in midfield and race to help when he sees the first smoke from a neighbor's place. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody strong enough to clear trees, heave bales, yet gentle enough to tame lambs and wean pigs and tend the pink-combed pullets who will stop his mower for about an hour to splint the broken leg of a meadowlark. It had to be somebody who plowed deep and straight and not cutting corners, somebody to seed, weed, feed, breed, and rake and disc and plow and plant and tie the fleece and strain the milk and replenish the self-feeder and finish a hard week's work with a 5-mile drive to church. Somebody who'd bail a family together with the soft, strong bonds of sharing, who would laugh and then sigh, and then reply with smiling eyes when his son says he wants to spend his life doing what his dad does. So God made a farmer. It is our responsibility to protect that farmer and to protect what he does to feed this nation and a troubled world with the best quality food at the lowest price in the history of the world. So let us protect that farmer. Mr. President, I yield back.